So Svetozar Gligorić, we've seen several games against him in this event. It is a all-play-all ×4 event. Coming back to the introductory screen, you can see that each player played each player 4 times, twice in Bled, once each in Zagreb and Belgrade. We are on the tail end of this event in which Bobby did not have his best showing. This game against Gligorić, ending in a draw, played on September 7th, 1959. Gligorić, born February 2nd, 1923 in Belgrade, which was at the time known as Yugoslavia, passed away also in Belgrade 89 years later, August 14th, 2012. And he was widely regarded as a key figure in the development of chess in Yugoslavia. He won the championship of Yugoslavia 12 times. That's 12. That's amazing. He starts this game with pawn e4. We get a Sicilian defense with the pawn to c5. Knight f3, pawn d6, pawn d4. Pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, and that is your open variation. Knight f6, knight c3, pawn a6 is Miguel Najdorf's variation. Miguel Najdorf, born in Poland but escaped Nazi persecution in 1939 when he was in Argentina for the Olympiad, and World War II broke out and he stayed there. The rest of his family murdered by the Nazis. Miguel Najdorf's variation, pawn to a6. Now bishop g5, pawn e6, pawn f4, bishop e7, queen f3, the traditional line. Oh no, queen c7 brings it to the traditional line, right? Yes. Queen c7, the traditional line. We get queenside castles, and queen's knight to d7 is the main line, isn't it? Now g4, pawn b5, bishop takes knight on f6, and pawn takes the bishop. Now pawn f5, knight e5, hitting the queen. Queen goes to h3, and white castles right into the open here. Queen's knight to e2 is played. Not the most common move. More frequent is bishop to g1, saying, oh, thank you for castling right into the open. And that's usually answered by king h8 and rook g3 and rook g8. Coming back, in this game, the queen's knight moved to the e2 square, and black moved his king to h8 anyway, which is the most commonly played move in this position, vacating the g8 square for the rook. But apparently the best move is pawn takes the pawn on f5. And no doubt, bishop b7 is in the works in response to either pawn's capture here. Either way, here, and we'll play here, or here, and we'll play here. Oh, I forgot to switch to the other screen when I was showing the sideline. That's okay. We could just leave it on this screen. All right, so coming back, after king h8, knight to f4 was played. And of course, white can still play rook g1 here as well. And that now makes pawn takes pawn possible should this open up, because the bishop's no longer going to be hitting the rook. But knight f4, rook g8, as expected, and now rook g1. And note that the eval bar gives a splinter's edge to white here, doesn't it? It says that was a mistake? Okay, so f takes e6 in my mind then. He's calling for bishop to e2, but what about taking this pawn? No, marked as inaccurate. Here either knight can capture, so rook g8 was played, and rook g1. d5, now f takes e6. Do not play e takes d5 here. On e takes d5, e takes f5. And even if you d6 here, it's a nothing burger because I bishop takes d6. Oh, I get an exclam there, but I'd say it's a nothing burger. Coming back, though, f takes e6 here. D takes e4. And now knight d5, hitting the queen. That's marked inaccurate. Bishop g2 being called for, attacking the e-man. And that will be answered with bishop b7 to defend, I think. And after e takes f7, knight takes f7. But you can bring your knight to e6 and attack the queen. It says that's inaccurate. Let's come back. Knight d5, hitting the queen. Queen c5. Now knight takes the bishop on e7. Right, so e takes f7, grabbing the pawn and hitting the rook is the move indicated here. I'd have to take it, and then after knight takes the bishop here, then queen takes the knight, and no doubt queen h4. Coming back, knight takes e7 was played here. Queen takes the knight, knight f5 hits the queen, and queen takes the e-man. Now queen h6 is played. Good move. It overworks this rook here, doesn't it? The rook has to defend the d8 square. Well, it's marked inaccurate. The point is, if I move rook d8, he can't take without me checkmating him. So I thought queen h6 is a nice move, the bot calling for rook g3 instead. That's going to be answered by queen b6, isn't it? I get a thumbs up for queen b6. If he plays rook d6, hitting my queen, I'll play queen f2. And then the white queen comes to h6 anyway, doesn't it? Ooh! Whoa! Double exclam! Double exclam ladles and jelly spoons. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. A double exclam. Sweet, sweet, sweet. Well, Gligorić with queen h6 right away. Good move, in my opinion. Bishop d7. Do not play knight takes the pawn. Your rook is overworked. It can't cover everything. So knight takes pawn just gives away the knight, doesn't it? Because it oh, a double exclam again. Another double exclam. And he has to play bishop d7. He has to obstruct the d file against this rook and connect his own rooks. So the point is, first of all, obviously we can't play here because we're mated. That's a self-mate. If you play that, that's rook d8 check. And then all you can do is stall. You play here, and then you lose that, and then you play here. And the point is, the rook is pinned by the rook to the king, so that checkmate is glorious. Bada bing, bada boom. So, I mean, even if you play this first, this is a checkmate because the rook is pinned to the king. So sweet. Now, I should also point out that you do not want to take the knight with the queen because on knight takes queen, rook takes rook check, and it's the same thing. It's just different. Bada bing, bada boom. Checkmate. So you'd have to play the bishop to d7 is what I was getting at right here. And then there's a lot that white can play. For example, bishop h3. If queen takes knight now, rook takes the rook here still, and here king takes the rook, and bishop takes the queen. And that's that. It's just a matter of time, isn't it? 'Tis just a matter of time. He's up a queen for a bishop, and the bishop is pinned. So two double exclams in that sideline. Thank you very much. So bishop to d7 had to be played right away here. That's the point of what I was trying to say about don't take that pawn that looks like it's under super attack. It's not because this rook was overworked. So now rook d6 hits the queen and knight takes the g-man counter attacking. So rook takes the knight and queen takes the knight. Rook takes the rook. Check. Rook f4 looks really interesting. Defended by the queen, hitting my queen. And that chases it away from its defense of the bishop here on d7. So I'd have to play queen g5, but after queen trades, I'm losing my bishop. Oh, no, I can't do that. That's hot. But still, this is still strong. Kramnik is typing? Oh, because I had a couple of brilliancies? Kramnik is typing. Well, you can see right here, I mean, you guys can see my computer is off. You can see it's on there, off. It's right there on the screen that it's turned off. So, suck it, Kramnik. Okay. So, rook takes the rook was not cared for by the bot. That would have been a nice move, rook f4. Now, rook takes rook, and the bot definitely prefers king takes the rook. I guess I'll take the pawn, right? The eval bar favoring black here. I'm pretty uncomfortable in black's shoes, to be honest. Hanging on, though, you have to play so precisely with these pieces just breathing down the king's neck. Well, anyway, rook takes and rook takes. Here, rook takes the pawn anyway, hitting the queen, and he played queen d5. No doubt he wants bishop g4, threatening checkmate. Well, rook d6 was played, hitting the queen again. So queen back to f5, and we're going to get some repetition in order to advance the move counter toward the satisfaction of the time control. After queen f5, rook back to f6. And now he traded queens, forced, forking the king and the queen, check. Queen takes the queen, rook takes the queen, and rook takes the pawn on f7. So that brings us to a rook bishop versus rook bishop endgame. The bishop coming to g4 here. King d2, bishop f3, connecting the bishop and the pawn. King to e3, taking a position of blockade. Rook to g1, hitting the undefended bishop. Bishop to h3, rook to e1, check. Now king f4, bishop d1, king e5, hiding behind black's pawn. Rook e7, sensible move. So rook e7, preferred by the bot. I actually like bishop f5 here for white. Let's see what I get for bishop f5. I get a star. King e5 marked inaccurate by the annotator. Pawn e3. Yeah, bishop h5 is quite an interesting move. It's the rook. Rook would have to come to f5. It says f8 check. Okay. But here's what interests me. I'm thinking about sacrificing my bishop and playing e3. Oh, it's marked inaccurate. My idea was give up the bishop and then play rook g1. And after bishop g4, oh, look, it gets exclam. Yeah. The point is I'm threatening to push. He's got to play bishop g4 and give back the material. Because if he doesn't, I'm coming to e2 next. The problem with this king on e5 is the rook can't get behind my pawn. So if he doesn't put his bishop on g4 and give his bishop back, I'm pushing my pawn and promoting. So he's forced to give material back. Oh, another double exclam by Coach Daniel. Another double exclam. And that way he can maneuver his rook to where the bishop was and get behind this pawn. Now I will probably just get my rook here, and after he takes my pawn, I'll take his pawn, and that's a drawn position. E3 was played by Bobby. Bishop f5, rook g1, rook takes the h-man with check, defended by the bishop. King g8, rook c7. And no doubt he wants to get his king here and form a mating net. Bishop covering here. The king would be then covering these, and the threat would be checkmate. So bishop g4 played, and that's marked inaccurate. E2, just threatened to promote. E2, and after the checkmate threat, just play king h8. Obviously, don't promote. Oh, I got a queen. Hey, did you win? No, but I promoted my pawn to a queen. Oh, boy. Checkmate, baby. Checkmate. So obviously you don't want to do it. But if you play here, then the check can be interposed. So he'd have to really just take the repetition because there's no way to stop the promotion. He'd have to just play here and back and just take the repetition. So bishop g4 by Bobby Fischer. In fact, you wouldn't have even wanted to give the check once he played king h8 because the interposition and you have no repetition and the pawn will promote. On bishop g4, bishop takes the bishop, rook takes the bishop. Now rook c3, hitting the pawn, and he's going to get behind the pawn. Pawn e2, rook e3, obviously forced. Rook g2, hanging on to the pawn for the moment. King to d4, the bot calling for h4. Even h3, just get the pawn off of that square. You get a star there. But the king to d4 was played. Bobby goes ahead and promotes and forces him to capture. Don't give him time to play king c3. Grab the c pawn, not the h pawn. Rook b1, he wants to keep his pawns that are joined, and so he surrenders the h-pawn. King f7, doesn't take the h-pawn. a3, king e6. I gather he just wants to keep this guy from coming in here, so the rook keeps the king held in place. This pawn is indefensible. If it ever moves, then I can get behind it. So Bobby says, first things first, let me contain your king and keep him from infiltrating. Remove any complications. So anyway, Bobby with the king to e6. If the point is, if you take here, he's playing king c5. That is my point. But you can still keep the king from coming here. Just play rook to h6. And that should be that. That should just be a dead draw, shouldn't it? So Bobby says, if you push your pawn, I can always get behind it later. So I'm going to keep your king at bay. b3 played here. Yeah, h3 might be stronger, but it's probably 6 of the one and half dozen of the other. Let's see. The eval bar is dead 0, and the eval bar is still dead 0. It's dead 0 either way, isn't it? So now rook takes h2. He decides, I'll go ahead and take that pawn now that this pawn is no longer hanging. The point is, now that this pawn is no longer under attack, white can play rook h1 on his next turn, preventing my rook from coming to h-file. So that's why he takes it now and lets him in here. Anyway, king d7 is played, king b6, rook a2, king takes the pawn, rook takes the pawn, check, king b7, interesting, king d6, king b6, king d7, pawn b4, rook h3, rook c1, rook h8, blunder. Ooh, look at the eval bar. Oh, he should have played, because this is gonna, Bobby, this is going to allow white to achieve Lucena's position, isn't it? He should have played rook h5 and defended the pawn. He needed to play rook h5 and defend the b-man. His idea with this was to get behind here, but the problem is this will allow Lucena's position. All I have to play is the rook to one of these squares, right? I'll play rook c5. Gligorić actually missed it. He took the pawn. Okay, the bot did say rook c7 check, but I think I can just play here. But on rook c7 check, king d6, rook c6 check, king d7, king takes pawn. And now the point is, after rook b8, rook b6. And white is going to win this game. Google Lucena's position, Lucena, to get the details on this endgame. So Bobby blunders, but Gligorić reciprocates and plays king takes the b-man. And now the position's back to equal. Rook b8 check. King a4. I don't think he's going to get the Lucena, is he? No, because rook a8 check, king b3. Rook c8, rook takes rook, king takes rook, king c4, and king b8, and they drew the game. But a near catastrophe for Bobby Fischer there.